It was the immigrant hustle when you didn't have the money. It was always trying to figure out how to get the better thing without asking mom for money. I was like, how do I get that without, paying for it? You know what I mean? Not stealing, but how do I trade up or switch out or negotiate a deal with somebody? Not knowing that I was doing sales and business.
Welcome to the Midgame Mindset. Join us as we dive into the pivotal moments that shape today's top sales and marketing leaders, RevOps innovators, and entrepreneurs. This is where grit meets growth and the game changes for good. If you find value in this conversation, be sure to share it with another growth leader who would enjoy it. And now, let's get to the show. Welcome to the Midgame Mindset. It's great to see you. I'm your host, Rich Bishop, and I am really excited about the conversation that we're going to have today with Johnson Tran, JT. JT, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Rich. Awesome to see you, brother. I know we had a couple conversations before, so I'm stoked to be here on the show with you, man.
I love it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to diving in. Now, for those of you who don't know, JT is the Chief Channel Officer at helpdesk.tech. He founded an ERP company called Elefante, built it up, and was able to sell it about 3 years later. He's currently a shareholder in other companies as well, and as we'll hear, a martial arts enthusiast with black belts in multiple disciplines. So we're going to dive deep there as well. JT, as I said, great to have you on the show. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, Rich. A, thanks for having me, and thanks everybody for watching, if you do. So it's a pleasure. It's the first generation immigrant story. I think that's where you got to start, really. If you listen to a lot of the guys, I think, Mr. Gary Vee's big on it, with his first generation immigrant story. I've got the same, except I was actually born in Houston, Texas in '82. So my parents came here after the Vietnam War. My dad was a big military intel guy against communism. So that was pretty neat to hear his stories. But yeah, started with nothing, grew up in an acres neighborhood. So there's, in Houston, the joke is if you grew up in an acres neighborhood, you kind of grew up, with the yellow square cheese, cereal with no name, bread with no name. So that's the world I come from. But coming from nothing and, coming from, I say this because I think this is the most important part that people don't realize. They see everybody's successes, but they don't know what it took to get there. The biggest one is I still remember taking a lunch to school with my crappy bologna and cheese sandwich, with no name and fake mayonnaise. And then my mom would always tell us to bring the brown sack home because we got one brown sack a week that had to last. So again, guys, that's how I grew up. But started off there. I'm a native Houstonian, obviously. Yeah, Rich. I mean, I've been doing martial arts since I was 8. I think that's a big I don't know what to say. Probably the biggest thing that has kind of shaped me and formed me to where I got today with the discipline and the understanding of you're going to practice something 10,000 times, but you may never use it, but it's okay, right? And then when you need to use it, it's there. And I know we talked about this before, but there's only been 2 people that have actually kind of guided me through this. My dad. My dad's been a big part of my life. Hard military dad. And then obviously Bruce Lee. So never read a book, never finished a book, because knowledge and education's great, but all that without applying is useless. Again, another Bruce Lee proverb. I had to figure out how to pay my way through college, Rich. So I got a job at T-Mobile because I was buying a new cell phone every other month with the lawn mowing money or whatever extra side hustle I was doing as 19 to make money. But that's how I broke into the tech industry, was selling 2G cellular services. You know what I mean? Start off in retail and kind of work my way through. So from 19 to here, it's been majority tech, and that's been kind of my success. But I'll tell you, and I'll bring this up, I've learned that, if you look at people's lives, again, I picked 16 to 26 to sacrifice. A lot of people don't do that in their teens and 20s. That's when they want to party, and they want to party in Austin, and they want to go to 6th Street, and they want to waste parents' money, and they want to complain about their parents. But I took 16 to 26 to actually work my tail off and go to school full time and save money. To then when I was 28, that was the last time I had a mortgage. You know what I mean? To then being right? So this is the untold story of the hardships. But I skipped all the parties. In college, I only partied once a quarter. From 28 on, I'm 42 now. I've been able to do kind of what I want, when I want, how I want, with who I want. So, you think about that journey. It doesn't matter the jobs. I'll end it with this. Is most people wait till they're 55, 65, 60 and 70, 65, 75, 75 and 80, and they wish they coulda, shoulda, woulda, and they regret it. So that's kind of my lens on where I started and where I'm at today, and just a little bit about myself.
There's a lot there for us to dive into and unpack, which I love, and I really want to get into it. I want to start with bringing the brown paper bag to school at the beginning of the week and needing to bring it home throughout the week so that you can continue to reuse it. It sounds like sacrifice was really a part of early age for you, and you talk about the 10-year period in your older years when you've got a little bit more financial resources to be working with, and the power of using that. What did that mean for you, and what were you thinking at the time when you were a kid having to reuse the same lunchbox or lunch bag, looking at the other kids in school? Were you seeing it as a sacrifice that you were willing to make, or did you look at it as a way that almost separated you from the other kids that you were going to school with?
I think, Rich, it was, you didn't know any better until you actually were sitting next to somebody with a cool lunch kit. I think really that was it. And then, so I didn't know, again, we didn't grow up in a nice neighborhood, so nobody else really had nice stuff. But then when you went to school in other neighborhoods, right, because it was a diverse school, so there were some rich neighborhoods, there were some poor neighborhoods, there was some middle class. It was a good, and then you go, oh, wow, there's actually this diverseness. But for me, I will tell you, I looked at it as, how could I sell my sack lunch to somebody to make money to then go buy lunch from the lunchroom? So again, it's the lens you look at it from. It's like I could have dwelled upon, my parents always told me growing up, right? I think it starts there with good parents. Can you give me 10 seconds? I got to walk this way 10 seconds, I'll walk right back. But I'm going to keep talking, okay? Is that cool? Cool? 10 seconds?
Yeah, right. Yeah, go for it.
So, my parents growing up, they told me something specific. They said, I'm going to give you a place to live, I'm going to give you food to eat, and I'm going to give you a car to drive. Everything else you're going to figure out yourself. So that's what they told me when I was young. Like 5 years old, 6 years old, 7, all the way up till now. They still tell me the same thing. Hey, if you ever go bankrupt, we'll always give you a place to live. We'll always give you food to eat, but you got to buy your own car at 42 now, son. You know what I mean? So it's always been a thing. And I think parents don't do a good job doing that. It's like, we're going to give you a really good foundation of a house. We're going to lay the concrete for you with the plumbing and the electrical. You got to build your own house, JT. Like that's it. You got to do this yourself. So they told me that. So I was always happy with the sack lunch. As a matter of fact, growing up, my mom would make, just normal Vietnamese dishes, but it'd be the fish with the face still, right? And like has the eyeball still. And I'm like, I was like, I don't want to eat that. Can you just give me I joke, can you give me the government bologna and cheese, Mom? Can you just give me that sandwich? So it was so good to eat those. I can't eat those now because cholesterol. But back then, I was just happy to get that versus bringing rice and a fish with eyeballs to school. So for me, being young, and this was like, again, I was young, I was like seeing how I could take mine and trade it for something better. You know what I mean? And so that's what ended up happening. Yeah. So my buddy would open his lunchbox. I'm like, oh man, Pop-Tarts? And I'm like, hey man, you want my sour cream and onion chips for your Pop-Tarts? And be like, oh yeah, my mom would never buy that because there's too much salt in those cheap chips. I'm like, here you go. So we traded the salty cheap chips, and I got real Pop-Tarts. So I'm like, I got my bologna and cheese with Pop-Tarts. So it just became that. Like, how can I parlay anything that was in my hand that my parents gave me into something better? And so I did that with comic books as well. My first comic book my mom bought me for my birthday, $1.25, that was it. And then after that, parlayed into my whole comic book collection. Just traded up. One comic book for $3, one comic book for $4. It depends on the friend and what their stash looked like. But then that's how I built my comic book collection. So.
So you were the young entrepreneur in elementary school growing up, trying to see where the hustle was and where you could upgrade and get better as you go.
Yes, that was it. That was it. I was just trying to. I had no idea. I guess I'm just a dumb sales guy now as a career. But it was one of those, like, it started when I was young. It was the immigrant hustle when you didn't have the money. It was always trying to figure out how to get the better thing without asking mom for money, or without we got $1.08 growing up. If we got straight A's, guys, kids, parents, listen. I got $1.08 when I got straight A's or honor roll on my report card. My mom worked at a gas station. It was like one of those bulletproof, shells, you know what I mean? And you would have to push the drawer over. So I got raised in one of those with my mom. And when we got honor roll or straight A's, she would give me $1.08. There was a Burger King in the same parking lot. We walked to the Burger King to get a paper crown, $1.08 Whopper for 6 weeks worth of hard work. This was our our win. I was like, how do I get that without paying for it? You know what I mean? Not stealing, but how do I trade up or switch out or negotiate a deal with somebody, not knowing that I was doing sales and business.
You, it's kind of cool to hear that because you hear over the generations of the immigrant families coming in, and you look at some of the biggest innovations that we've had in this country have come from either first generation or second generation immigrants who had that hustle, who came with very, very little. So they had very little expectations of what to get, but they wanted to put in the work, the sacrifice, the hustle in order to make something better. Mm-hmm. And you got that at a very, very young age through obviously your parents, but that grit and that hustle sounds like that it's really stayed with you over the years and the different business activities that you've been a part of. And you're not just a dumb salesperson or just a salesperson, as you said before. There's a lot of tact and grit and hustle behind what it is that you do that obviously served you very well when you got into the business years for yourself.
Absolutely. It's you learn that you're going to get turned down. So you learn that you're not going to have the best, growing up how I did. You learn that 98 no's is okay. It's like dating. It's the guy that wants to date the perfect girl. We both been here. And now we're married, and you found the perfect girl. But how many coffee dates did you have to go on to get there? It's not the first one. There's no like one shot and you get her and it's done. How many no's did you get? So getting no's from dating, it's good because you're gonna find the right one, and getting no's from, hey mom, can I get $1 for a comic book? No. Getting no's from the parents, getting the no's from just everything and getting rejected and all that, right? The hardships actually got me to understand business, because in business, people, I think the famous saying, if you don't ask, you don't get. So what I took from being young to pivot into my sales career and the business world was, if you talk to 100 people about whatever it is, doesn't matter. It's like asking 100 girls to go out on a date with you and you only get 2. Asking 100 customers to buy your product or service, and only 2 of them buy. Well, then what does that equate to? You got 98 no's and 2 yeses, but it's a 2% conversion. So for me, it's like, okay, well, how many, and again, this is just being old. If you remember the Tootsie Pop, how many licks does it take to get in the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop? So I tell people that all the time. I'm like, guys, business is that easy. You don't have to make it complex. I don't care what your product or service is. And so always thinking about the easiness of the Tootsie Pop commercial has to equate to business. So I know we were talking about in 2012, I was launching a Verizon wholesale MVNO. So we went to Verizon, we negotiated rates, data talk text, and we made our own kind of brand and sold it our own way. And as I was launching that, at nights and on the weekends, I saw a big void because a lot of people were building or a lot of people were building businesses and running their business, Rich, on QuickBooks and Excel. So I was like, okay, well, I don't want to recreate anything that's out there. So I went and I found this, it was an infant stage kind of open source software company. And I said, hey, can I be a partner for you guys? And so, cut the $50,000 check, got the source code, and then started my own ERP software company. You know what I mean? It's boutique. It wasn't big. We had, 3 to 5 at a given time guys, in India. And then I joke, I had my token white guy, who was a good buddy of mine, and he was like kind of my CTO, business partner. But at nights and on the weekends, we were solving a problem. We were solving the problem of not having the small, medium customers who are 25 million or less, have to buy like the big SAPs and the NetSuites. We wanted to give them something like, hey, look, 25,000 bucks, couple $100 a month. You got an ERP software. You don't have to hire employees. And so we did that. But then in the same fixing their operational side of the software, how we positioned it, Rich, we came up with a way to help them make more money. So all I did was like, hey, I'm going to fix your operational side with this ERP software, sales order, outgoing shipment, AR, all the basic stuff, the ERP software. But then I'm like, hey, what if you could duplicate your e-commerce websites for all other distributors in other states and have them sell all of your $25 million worth of inventory? So not only am I going to save you money operationally internally, but I'm going to make you money externally because Rich's technology distribution company, Rich's wig distribution company, you could have 100 of those with 100 different owners across, and then now you've basically built an indirect sales model. So I took what I learned in 2007 working for T-Mobile, which was indirect sales, and then I added that into a business I was building, and then I took these Fortune 100 ideas and I gave it as part of a package to these small business owners. And so you talk about the 3-year period. It only took us 3 years for us to find somebody, a suitor to find somebody that we can get absorbed into. And so that was fantastic. And I had no idea. I mean, Rich, again, doing things for reasons. I sacrificed the 16 to 26, but I also sacrificed like a career to get some V or D or C level title at a big, multi-million-dollar company, because in 2012 I wanted to work from home. And there was DirecTV customer support rep or build a company, and specifically a software company, because you can work from home. Because why? I knew my wife and I wanted to have our first kid, and so I was like, I wanted to be a kind of at-home dad. You know what I mean? I wanted to wipe his butt when they came out. I wanted to feed her the baby bottle. So like, this was not me wanting to build a company because I wanted to be somebody or have some ego, like and we talk about this a lot. I don't have any of that, right? I drive a 2008 Toyota Highlander, Grandpa Gold, 100 rock chips in the front with a roof rack. Like, that's what I drive, y'all. This is like success. This is what this looks like. But I did that. I did that business, Rich, so I can be home with my daughter, because that actually is what mattered to me at the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I didn't want to be like, my dad had to do it because he had to do it, not because he had an option. I had an option to work the 10-hour days, 5 days a week, or I had an option to like, hey, let me go try to carve out this work from home thing in 2012. That's really what stemmed up me doing it. No other reason.
Yeah, for sure. Having the family at home and being able to be there, it's great that you had that experience with your parents, but you realized as you were growing up how valuable that was for you. To have them there for you, that you wanted to then do it. I'm very much the same way. I was really happy in the COVID years of having to work from home, and then that really opened up a lot of opportunities for remote work and consulting from home and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. It was important to me because my mom, I like to call, she was a work from home OG back in the 80s. She went back to school to become a medical transcriptionist so that she could be home when my sister and I were coming home from school, and she could type and work and do what she needed to do. But she'd go out during the day to the doctor's office to get the transcript tapes that they used to use well before Dragon, obviously. And she'd plug them in, put her little headphones in, and type away so that she could be there for us when we got home from school. And that just meant so much to me to be able to do that. It was something that I also always wanted to do. There's a lot of value in being able to be home and be here when the kids come home and have a question on their homework that you can step away and actually spend some time with them and help them through the math problems that are giving them a hard time. That in itself is absolute gold. And it's great that you purposely started a business with that end in mind.
100%. And it's kind of carved out my saying. It's on my LinkedIn. It's right on top. I plead the fifth. If you've ever watched A Few Good Men or Men of Honor, you've heard that before. People think it's a lawyer thing, but I got it because it's catchy. I plead the fifth. It's faith, integrity, family, time, and health. Those are the only things I care about. Like, I don't care about anything else. And sometimes people take it like, they're like, oh, they look at it as a negative way. Oh, so you don't care about, making money. You don't care about making a company successful. I was like, no, I didn't say that. I said, this is the things I most care about. Because if there's something wrong with these five, it doesn't matter about, the facade. It doesn't matter about the money or your career, your professional, your title, what job you have. If you have disruption in these five, you have a problem. You know what I mean? So over time, I plead the fifth, faith, integrity, family, time, and health, became kind of more cornerstone of how I live life. Again, engraved in me through everything my dad told me, all the stuff that, Bruce Lee says about life. But it's my catchy way of kind of just giving people exactly who I am, right? I plead the fifth. Oh, haha, you don't want to say it. No, you don't want to say what you're thinking because, no. And then they're like, oh, that's actually cool. So that's my kind of moral compass. You know what I mean? It's always been mine, and I don't sell bad deals because it affects those five. I'm not a shady business person. I tell people the truth to a fault sometimes. I had to tell an executive, put it this way, because I didn't want my fit disrupted. I had to tell an executive, like I told one of my friends in high school, that he was high off his own ego. That's how bad it was. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't have the guts to do it. I can give two craps less. I'm like, you want to settle, let's get in the ring, put on some boxing gloves, let's go. Let's be a real man. But if you're mad about what I'm saying and it's the truth and everybody else views you that way, well, it's just like the drug addict, right? When you tell a drug addict that he's high off drugs and he should get help, they get mad at you. They get in denial. And so a lot of people do the same thing. So, it's because I'm not going to mess with this. I'm not going to mess with my fifth at all. Not for anybody else. Not even for myself. I wouldn't do it.
So when you look at that, it reminds me of Jeff Bezos famously said that when talking about work-life balance, that there is no such thing as work-life balance. Those two will never be balanced, but there can be and should be work-life harmony. And you pleading the fifth, I love that phrase. It's so easy to remember and point back to. It reminds me of that quote from Bezos that there needs to be harmony in all those different aspects. So I'd love to find out from you, when you're thinking about that and you're talking about your fifth, how do you maintain that, at least harmony, if not balance, between those? Because at any one point in time, there's going to be one that is more urgent or needs more of your time and attention, which then neglects others. How do you keep that in check or rebalance or reharmonize after there's been an event pushing you toward one or the other?
Rich, that's a great question. I'll go back to the sacrifice. Since I was able to sacrifice 16 to 26, my dad always told me, if you make $5, spend 3, save 2. And then when I got into commission sales, I was, if you make $20, spend 3 and save 17, because commission sales are business, right? You can make bonuses and extra money. So from 16 to 26, or what I could remember, I started saving that way. You know what I mean? I saved like my dad taught me, and then I parlayed it into a bigger savings. So I think people don't plan. People want to overspend. They want to have the over ego. They want to look better than they really are. They want to go to the cocktail party with a nice suit, nice shoes. And as my dad always says, it's the suit doesn't make the man makes the suit. You know what I mean? And it's true. Like if you're truly not happy deep down inside and you didn't plan properly with money and you're trying to create this fakeness and you're overreaching for the fakeness, what happens? The suit actually overtakes the man. So my dad's always like, if you really can't fill the $20,000 suit, you shouldn't be buying a $20,000 suit. If you can't, for me, if you can't buy a Porsche cash, Like people, I'm cool. Like I have 3 sports cars, 90 sports cars, but my thing is like I could buy all of those 5 times cash. Everything I buy, I can buy 5 times cash. You know what I mean? And it's not going to hurt my fifth. So I think people's foundations aren't. It's more like crushed granite. You know what I mean? Or it's like pavers on grass, and then they try to build this really huge mansion on it, which is fine. They have the money to build a huge mansion, but they have this crushed granite and they have these pavers holding up this, and then it falls over, and then they're deep. I mean, they're deep in the rabbit hole, right? Their anxiety and all that stuff kicks in. So I think the beauty is, from just my perspective, I've been able to get to where I'm at because the foundation was built. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's a tiny home or it's a mansion. Like I can go back to nothing. I can just sleep on the foundation only with just a cardboard box, and I'm still going to be okay because I know I can rebuild that house again. Most people don't do that. So the lens for me is I think you have to prepare for it first. That's the biggest one. That doesn't matter what happens after. You have to prepare for it.
Planning ahead, being prepared to make the sacrifice. There's a lot of thought and foresight that goes into a lot of what you've been saying here. And I think in many ways it's interesting to me because there are a lot of successful people that have started companies, that have bought companies, that have founded other companies that do well in their career, and they end up being students of the game and by reading books, listening to podcasts, going to conferences, all that. And you've done all of this with really built on your own experiences of trial and error and the people that are closest to you. I'd love to get your thoughts on why that personal experience and learning from that works, and how do you get this successful of where you are right now based on that personal experience? What's the mindset? What's the thought pattern as you're going through these different experiences that helps you to improve every time and to learn from what it is that you're going through at a rate that many people need to read hundreds of books in order to get there? You're learning it from your own experience. What's that like?
So if you do the planning like we talked about, you get to do whatever you want. So go and I don't think I fully answered your Jeff Bezos thing, and I want to. So I'm gonna go back to that, and then I'll answer that question if that's cool with you, Rich. So because I didn't finish my thought. So the harmony thing, if you take care of yourself personally first, so preparing personally, like not overreaching all your stuff. Professionally, it's a yin and yang, right? And so how you carry yourself personally, you know what I mean? If you know how to save, if you know how to live small, if you understand, if you make $5, spend 3, save 2. If you can't buy 5 cash, you can't buy 1. So, if you want to buy the $100,000 Porsche, make sure you have $500,000 in the bank. You know what I mean? Truly. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but if you live that life, you're going to be way better. You know what I mean? So I think that's the life people have to understand. So, Jeff Bezos, yeah, I mean, for me, it's just the yin and yang, right? The way you carry yourself personally is the way you're going to carry yourself professionally. So if you are spending all your money for a facade in a house that you actually can't afford and a life you can't afford, what happens is you do bad things professionally, and so they don't work together in harmony. You know what I mean? So harmony is really, the idea of, if you think about life, life is like sand in your hand. So like take a scoop of sand at the beach. And this is true. So like the uber rich, I mean, name them all. They all have some family problem. All of them do. The uber successful, they all have a family problem. Because if you look at the sand, what do you want most of? If you want the best family, typically you can't be uber rich. You know what I mean? Because to get uber rich, it takes time. You know what I mean? Now uber rich meaning like you're a billionaire. Now you could be wealthy, meaning you could have a couple $1 million in the bank. You could be wealthy simple, right? And if you put $500 away a month for 30 years, you're going to be a millionaire. So if you put $1,000, you can get there in 15 years. If you put $1,500 a month, you can get there in whatever, right? 7.5. So just cut 30 years by 2, but people don't even do that because they're chasing this life because they want to look like the billionaire. So I think that's where we need to be rewired is if you just automatically put $1,000 away or $500 away, you're technically going to be wealthy. And you could do what you like, you could do what you not like, but at least you know you're going to be okay in 30 years. And then the money left over, right? Again, still philosophy. If you make $5, spend 3, save 2. If you could buy 5 of them cash, buy 1. If you live by that, it doesn't matter if you become a Jeff Bezos or not. You know what happens? Then your 5th stays intact. I think that's the formula that people are missing. They want to go from, this to the Jeff Bezos, but they don't realize that if they're not doing the small things where, hey man, you have a hiccup, you want to take a year off, spend time with your kiddo? Like I used to take 3 months off all the time, with my kids every year. 3 months every year with my kids and just do nothing. You know what I mean? Take them to the park, take them to get ice cream, whatever. But it made up for the other 9 months that I'm gonna work really hard, So I think it's that. There's the sand in your hand. You squeeze it too tight, comes out. Hold it too loose, it comes out. You can only have just the right amount of sand, and you have to cut that sand in quarters. If it's money, family time, health. If it's all health, no money, no family time, that means you're working out 5 days a week, and you're probably ripped like Bruce Lee. But you know what I mean. You don't have the other stuff. So really pick it. You know what I mean. And that's what that is. But your last statement was, what was your last question, Rich? You were asking me how does my mindset something? I'm sorry.
No, that was great. The question was when some people read books and learn voraciously that way. Some people will use their own experiences. And a big part of the Midgame mindset podcast is we talk about what we call the Midgame moment, which is a moment where all growth leaders tend to face a challenge and draw from either personal experiences or experiences from mentors or from books to help change their mindset, which then allows them to get to new levels. And if you're not reading those books and you're studying Bruce Lee, right, in the ways that you're studying, and you're learning from your own experiences, there's a lot more, ownership. There's a much stronger connection to the lesson learned when you're learning it from your own experience versus reading somebody else's. And so I would just love your perspective on why you don't read and where does that personal experience come from and how do you approach that to make yourself better as time goes on?
Yeah, absolutely. So my mindset for me, first off, because a lot of people want to complain about life and hardships and, the government's not helping them. They didn't get a promotion. The company's not taking care of them and complain. I think the first mindset that I have being a first generation immigrant is, dude, let me send your average American butt back to like Lebanon, Israel, Vietnam, like just some second or third world country with no potable water. You know what I mean? I think so. Mindset is that I always tell people the problem is in between your ears. It's your mind. That's your problem. That also parlays for me into just doing it. So Nike's famous quote, just doing it. Bruce Lee's famous saying, you know what I mean? He's like, I'm worried about the guy that has practiced that kick 10,000 times or practiced that punch 10,000 times. Because if he throws it, he can throw it 10,000 times in a row, and there's no way the best fighter is going to be able to block it, right? It's going to go through, even if he does block it, it's going to hurt his arm. You know what I mean? Because he's thrown it that many times. So I think it's that. I think the martial arts background with, if you want to throw a perfect punch, if you want to throw the 1-inch punch, you know what I mean? You got to go practice that. You got to move 300 pounds, like 1 inch away, or 200 pounds, and then you can actually do a 1-inch punch. And then it's doing the reps and putting it in. So for me, the martial arts mindset was that, the famous Karate Kid, right? Wax on, wax off, but it's a martial arts move. Paint the fence, paint the house. It was this way. So he didn't read the book. Mr. Miyagi just said, here's a bucket of paint, go paint my house. And he's like, what the hell? Right? So that is I think that's the mindset. I think it's the mindset is just, for me, just going out and doing it, because that's what's going to make you lose weight. That's what's going to make you do the 1 inch punch. That's what's going to make you do the high side kick or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish career wise. Go, you can read all the books you want, right? Hey, you can fix it. You can do an engine swap on a car watching a YouTube video. But if you never actually go swap the engine 100 times or 10 times, you have no conversion ratio. Again, going back to sales, you have no conversion ratio on how good you actually could do it with 100% accuracy. So that's the mindset people have to have. The books and stuff are great. For me, I don't read a book because it's too much time. So faith, integrity, family time, and health. There's not that much time. Like I tell people, calculate all the hours with how many years you expect to live. So if you read, we sleep 8 hours a day, 6 to 8, subtract that. Then if you read 1 hour a day, subtract that. And so for me, just like Bruce Lee. Again, I learned this, and this is probably Bruce Lee and growing up with no money is probably the reason why I don't read books. Because Bruce Lee was never a black belt. Did you guys know this? Most people were like, he's the best martial artist, grandfather of MMA, you know what I mean? He's a legend. But he never held a black belt in judo. He never held a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He never held the highest rank in boxing. He never was the best taekwondo guy. He's never the best karate guy. Never the best anything. But he's the best martial artist. Because he went, and I think this is why I don't read books. I'd be like, hey, Rich, you read that book? Yeah, I'm happy you wasted 5 hours of your life to read that 100-page book. By the way, Rich, can you just tell me the 5 things I need to know about that book? Really, most books have only one. Really, most books have only one. Maybe 3. But can you give me 5, right? And so you just tell me the 5. I'm like, okay, cool, read the book, next, right? Because I'm doing what Bruce Lee does with martial arts. I want to take the best of what's going to help me win a real fight, and I want to discard it. And so for me, that's with me not reading books and listening to that kind of stuff is I don't need to know it all. I just need to know the 1 or 2 things that's most important. In our world, people need to sell more books. They need to sell more stage presence. They need to sell more of this like motivational, let me pump up all these people who are, and I say sick, not to be brash or rude or crude, but like if you're not motivated to do something and you're trying to find the inspiration, they sell all these things and they make a lot of money doing it. Totally cool. But my philosophy is I don't need all that because I'm self-motivated. I came from nothing and I'm not going to go back to cockroaches, hitting them with my shoe. I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? I don't want to go back to government bologna and cheese. You know what I mean? So what do I need to do? I just need to pick 3 or 5 things. I don't need to know Warren Buffett's investment strategy. I just know the 3 things at his core that he does all the time, every day, so I can be wealthy like him. But I don't need to know what he does daily. Just the 3 things he does all the time, the exact same. You know what I mean? And then I'm good. And I'll go to the next rich guy. Give me the 3 things and then I'll put them all together and I'm going to discard everything else because maybe the stuff they do, like what Warren Buffett's he eats McDonald's. Like I'm not doing that. So why am I going to read a book to go eat McDonald's? Because that's what he does every day. That's not good for my cholesterol. So I'm going to discard that, right? So that's me. It's just going in and doing it, getting punched in the face as fast as you can, knowing how that feels, and then learning how to, to fight better the next time. So yeah. I would say that's what it is. It was the immigrant story plus the Bruce Lee, knowing what he's done with no black belt in nothing.
Definitely. As we look to wrap up here, I've got one final question for you. And this one always gets an interesting response. You obviously have made your kids a very important part of your life. It's part of your pleading the fifth. What is one lesson that you've learned from your own experience that you want to make sure that they take with them as they grow up, move out of the house, start their own businesses, or get into college? What is that one major lesson that you've learned that you want to make sure that they take with them?
Oh, dude, that is hard, Rich. Man, it's hard to boil that into one. But
you can only pick one. Pick one.
I know. Honestly, because money is bad. More money, more problems. I think if I were to look at my journey, it's being debt-free. period. Being debt free, not owing anybody. Because if you owe people money, because here's the thing, if you owe money to the mobs, I don't care, Italian, Asian mob, Mexican mob, you always have something on your back that, like, little Sal's going to show up at your doorstep with a bat to come collect. Don't get in debt to go to college. Don't get in debt to look good. Don't get in debt to impress a girl. Don't get in debt to buy a house. Don't get in debt to buy a car. If you, like my dad always said, this is, I dovetailed it, but my dad always told me, if you have cash in the bank, again, cash is king. You can do whatever you want. If you own your house, nobody can touch your hair. Who's going to touch your hair? He used to always tell me that growing up. If you own, who's going to come collect? Nobody. So I would tell my kids, and I would tell all kids and adults, debt-free, period. Because then it unlocks career, it unlocks time, it unlocks health, it unlocks everything. Because I can go to the gym for 2 hours a day because I don't need the money. I can clock out if I wanted to. I can tell my boss, hey man, pay me just for half the week because I'm not working Thursday or Friday. Why? Because I'm debt-free. I can go spend time with my kids. So that, I plead the fifth, is big because money drives this being successful, right? The way I handle the money. So I think that's the number one tip, is just be debt-free always, every day.
It's fantastic advice. JT, thank you so much for joining us today. If people want to get a hold of you or follow you, how can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm like Mike Jones used to do in Houston. He was a local Houston rapper. He used to always sing his song. In his rap song, he used to be like 281-330-8004. Hit Mike Jones up on the low because Mike Jones about to blow. So he used to always say that. So I'm a proponent. My number's open. Call or text me. 281-241-7487. Right? I'm not scared to share that. So that's my number. Call or text anytime. I love helping people. I love hearing people's stories. I love helping people for free. No book subscription, no peer group needed. You don't have to join anything. I think because life is really easy, people just make it complex. It's not the other way around. So I'm here to try to make your life simple. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn, just, Johnson Tran. You could type in LinkedIn Johnson, I plead the fifth, and I'll probably pop up as well, because it's a part of my link URL. So those are the two ways.
Great. Yeah, and we'll include those links in the show notes as well. Great, yep. JT, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate all of your insight and wisdom today.
Yeah, man, it was super fun, man. I appreciate your time as well, dude. Thanks for putting this together.
Thanks for joining us on the Midgame Mindset. If today's episode sparked a new idea or helped shift your perspective, share it with someone who's ready to grow. Subscribe, leave a review, and keep playing the game. With the right mindset, the best moves are still ahead. Until next time, keep changing the game.